everybody, I am Jamie Cranmore and I'm an 8th grade science teacher here at TOPS, and I was just going to share with you some ideas to help gamify your class. So how we can use online or games in our online classroom. My students love playing games. So one of the ones that you probably know about is Kahoot. So we play Kahoot as a large class when I have a bunch of students in there. You can play that in a small group as like a reteach or just a review. The most important thing that I found when we're using games in the classroom is that we provide them a choice. Not all students are going to like the fast pace of Kahoot, and it makes some of them very frustrated. So in that case, I like to provide them with maybe a Quizizz, which I'm going to explain in a little bit if you've never used it, because that one is more work at your own pace. So that way I don't have a bunch of students that are just not playing because they don't like Kahoot. And then, of course, we have the ones that are just super competitive and they really like playing the Kahoot. So I like Kahoot because it has tools that you can use to check for your students' understanding. So you can check for the students' understanding, but also you have to keep in mind when using Kahoot that they are trying to answer the questions as fast as possible. So sometimes they may know the answer, but they misclicked because they wanted to answer first. One of the nice things at the end is you can get the class rank. So this would be your top students that answered correctly the fastest, and you can see their accuracy. And there's another slide where you can go in and actually see which questions they got right and which ones they got wrong. And then it also gives you the information for the kids that might need more help. So they didn't answer any questions right, and totally could be that they were just guessing. So that's so you have to keep that in mind when you're using this kind of data. And then the kids that maybe got some of them right. And then if you have a question like the whole class missed, that might be something that you want to throw into one of your reteach or as a warm-up or something later. So the other one I like to use is Quizizz. Quizizz is more work at your own pace. Gives them funny little sayings in between each question if they get it right or if they get it wrong. And then at the very end, it also lets them go back and retry ones that they might have missed. Again, like with Kahoot, you get a nice little report at the end. This is just an example. It does have like specific student names and which ones they missed and which ones they didn't miss, but I didn't want to put any student names in this video. But you can see like this student got them all correct. This student got most of them. So the student down here might need some extra practice with these. So these are probably more valid accuracy of what they know since they do have their own time to complete it. The other game I like to play is Jeopardy, and I know everyone's probably played this before, but if you're new, you may wonder, how can you play Jeopardy in a class online? So it's a little bit more tricky, but it's still pretty fun, and I've played it in classes as large as 60 to 70 students, and then, of course, the smaller classes, it's a little bit easier. So one of the things I do is I give kids choices for this one too. I'll put the slides in a breakout room if they want to work with a group of their friends and play through the questions in the breakout rooms and tally up their scores. Sometimes the students that just don't want to be in the breakout room, they want to stay in the main room, then I'll have just a smaller number of students in the main room that we can play with. And then if you use a web-based Jeopardy, which there's plenty of ones already even made out there for you, that you can give the students the link and they can lead the game themselves in a breakout room. So sometimes giving them control over what they're doing and how they play the games gets more students involved wanting to do this. So this is just an example of one of the Jeopardy games that we play. So one of the things is super important also is to make sure you give them directions because they probably might not know what to do, especially like I teach 8th grade. So I like to make it more fun like you would in a brick and mortar classroom. Put them in a breakout room with a group of, I don't know, depending on how many students you have, several students, but give them jobs, like they have to pick. Somebody's going to be the team captain. Someone's going to be the scorekeeper. You could have 2 people be the scorekeeper. Then let them come up with a team name. That makes it more personal, it makes it more fun, and you get some really cute names in there. And then I tell them to remember it, and I provide them, when I had smaller classes, I would provide them with a breakout room, and they were allowed to, after their team heard their question, they could jump down into the breakout room or private chat with each other to come up with their final answer. And then, of course, the team captain is the one who had to provide the final answer instead of a bunch of the students calling out. And of course, if it's a student on a different team that calls out the answer in the chat box or on the mic, then I tell them that They gave the point to that team, and that kind of cuts down on any of that happening in class. So one of the things is to be respectful and make sure everyone has given their input before the team name or their team captain gives the answer. And then this is a slide I'll put in there where they can list their team members' names, their captain, and then sometimes, depending on how large the class is, like if I'm doing this in a small group, it's a lot easier. I can rename the breakout rooms with their team name, so it's more personal for them, like they own it. So they really enjoy that. And then, of course, the questions, like if they're in a breakout room, we would put them like this. If there was the answer on the slide, I would cover them up so they could check their answer, but it's not like staring at them right when they look at it. So that's just an example of Jeopardy! And escape rooms is also super fun to play in a classroom. It's a lot easier when you have less students, because when you have 60 kids private messaging you their answer, it gets a little tricky, but I found that you can also put them in groups so they work together, and then just like Jeopardy, you'll have the team captain answer what their final answer is for that room, and then you can move them all into the next breakout room. So this is just an example of what they look like. So this was just the room at the end. So every room has a clue, and they have to answer correctly before I move their names into the next breakout room. And then, of course, they had a congratulations, you escaped the periodic table. So they were very happy at the end. I'm not sure how my slides at the beginning were taken out, but what I would do is just like all of a sudden in the middle of class or whenever we started the escape room, be like played the locking sound recording, and then give them a funny kind of like lead into it. You've been trapped inside the periodic table. You need to answer the questions correctly to escape. And then, of course, they'd go through the rooms and then finally escape at the end. So my students really enjoyed that. Another thing you could do is, that we've done in our science classes, is play kind of like a race game, where we take a bunch of the released star questions and put them in breakout rooms, and students can race to complete them accurately, and then kind of like the escape room, move themselves through the breakout rooms. You can even put them in teams to answer that. So they'd be like, read through the question and then PM your answer to me. You could also, if you use student moderators, have a student moderator help you with this as well. And this is nice because, like, when you're in the main class and you're trying to get students to answer, especially these types of star questions that have a lot of information on them, it's nice that they have their own pace, that they can, take their time and answer the questions and read at their own pace instead of being rushed. So I definitely like to use that, especially for some of these more lengthy ones. And then, of course, students that finish faster can move on, and they're not, waiting a long time and getting bored or whatever. Another one of our teammates had come up with one year was to grab the words out of the purple box. So really it's matching, but it's more fun because you would drag them out of the alligator's mouth, and move them into the correct spot. And they really enjoyed that. Crossword puzzles, if you can make them big enough so the students can write on them, they love doing these. Crossword puzzles, word searches are all good ways to practice vocabulary. And the last one I have is the gizmos or the virtual labs. Virtual labs, I like the PHET website. I'll show it to you really fast. They have labs for all sorts of different things. This one is for science, but if you look, you can find math and different other games that you can play. And it makes things more hands-on than staring at a PowerPoint screen that's not moving, not really doing anything. You can give them the link to the activity and they can complete it on their own, and they really like that. For science, we use gizmos where students can practice doing labs without, getting messy, and, a lot of parents don't want to have that in their house. It's hard to do some of the chemistry stuff especially, but it gives them a safe place to be able to experiment and see what happens in different situations like that. So that is what I have for games in the classroom, and there's probably a million other things and ideas that I could probably think of if I have more time, but that's just the information that I wanted to show you for now. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to help.